books into TV shows, music collaborations, comic books into movies. Crossovers allow people to experience other genres without leaving their favorite medium. It opens up the source material to a completely new audience. Comic books have crossed over into almost everything from TV shows to movies and of course video games. One of the coolest things about video games is that you can literally roleplay as your favorite superhero without ever needing to open a single comic book. But what makes a good comic book adaptation? In this video, we take a look at some of the best and worst comic book games in history, where the good ones succeeded and where the bad ones failed, and talk about some of the challenges inherent with making a good superhero game. Many of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s were obsessed with superheroes. We wanted to dress like them, fight like them, and live vicariously through the character on screen. With the video game industry blowing up right around the same time, it just simply made sense to have your favorite superheroes appear in video games too. But similar to movie adaptations, it doesn't mean they were all good. Giving the player control of a character they were already extremely familiar with brings a whole set of challenges not all games were able to overcome. Let's look at what not only was a bad adaptation, but what many cite as one of the worst games in video game history. Superman has had a rough go of it in video games, and it's arguable that a good Superman game doesn't even exist. Lore-wise, Superman is one of the strongest superheroes ever, perhaps too strong for a video game to accurately portray the character. That doesn't excuse Superman for the Nintendo 64 for being one of the worst video games ever made. What makes it so bad? The game was released in a totally unfinished state, which led to an insane amount of bugs and glitches that halted gameplay. Subpar graphics, which compared to games around that time, were totally inexcusable. The weird green hue on the stages and terrible draw distance made the game just painful to look at. On the gameplay side, half of the game had you flying through rings because Lex Luthor told you to do so, and if you miss enough in a row, you had to start all over again. You could turn around and get said ring, but since Superman controls like a shopping trolley, you lose too much time and have to start all over again anyway. Painful. There is so much more wrong with this game, but the point is this game ultimately failed to make the player feel like Superman at all. Flying through bloody rings. But a game which truly excelled in this area was Batman Arkham Asylum and the games that followed it. Starting with Arkham Asylum, the player was thrusted headfirst into Batman lore. You were given complete control over the superhero. You fought like Batman, you could use stealth and detective skills like Batman, and you could move like Batman. The variety in this game allowed the player to get as creative as they wanted in order to deal with a situation. You could simply glide down and pummel every guy you see, or use one of Batman's multiple gadgets to alleviate the current situation. Whatever you chose to do allowed the player to really feel like you were playing that superhero. The dark atmosphere of Arkham City really came to life thanks to the technology at the time, and the story made you care about Batman and also the villains that you came across throughout the game.
Are you gonna be a good boy and give up nicely?
All of these things came together beautifully to create a truly great comic book to video game adaptation. Ultimate Spider-Man is another example of a game that did this very well. It's a rare case of a game being based off a movie actually being great. The game allowed players to roam New York, saving citizens and fighting supervillains. It simply allowed the player to just have fun playing as Spider-Man. Allowing the player to feel like the character is one way to make a good superhero game, but Capcom answered the age-old playground argument of who would win in a hypothetical fight between two superheroes with the release of X-Men: Children of the Atom. Capcom, obviously well known for their Street Fighter series, took their expertise in fighting games and applied it to the superhero genre. For the first time, the player was able to pick their favorite superhero and fight versus style against another one. It of course kept close to the source material, but the biggest thing that they nailed was the personalities of the heroes and the variety of superheroes in the game. The gameplay had a lot in common with Capcom's previous fighting games, but being that they're superheroes, how strange would it be if Storm could only walk and jump, and was confined to one screen, when in the comics she spends most of her time fighting in the air? It is because of this that the decision to introduce air combos, multi-tiered fighting stages and various tactical maneuvers was a smart one. This game inspired Capcom to make sequels inserting their most popular Street Fighters versus Marvel's best in Street Fighter vs X-Men and later Marvel vs Capcom. It worked so well that it sparked what is known today as the Versus series. Capcom is still benefiting from this series as the release for Marvel vs Capcom Infinite is imminent. This is a similar formula that worked for the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games too. By giving the player a variety of superheroes to choose from and giving each individual a personality and a unique set of moves, it led to a thoroughly enjoyable experience and a pretty damn good game. Of course, there are way more games worth mentioning, and it's not just limited to the Marvel and DC universes, but I think it's clear that the best superhero games are just damn good games that stay as true as possible to the source material, allowing the player to fully immerse into the comic book worlds of their chosen character is a key to making a great superhero game. The hardware limitations of games back in the day don't really exist anymore, so I'm excited what the future will bring for the future of games starring our favourite heroes. There are so many games worth mentioning that I couldn't fit into this video, so let me know in the comment section below your favourite games based on superheroes and why you like them. On the flip side, games you hated. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you real soon.